Next, we have Representative Nadeau with House File 4675. I will move House File 4675 to be laid over. Welcome to the committee. Whenever you're ready, Representative Nadeau, please present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members. House File 4675 establishes a formal multi-stakeholder oversight body, specifically including counties, to ensure transparency, coordination, and accountability in human service IT decisions. As this committee knows, Minnesota is one of the few states where counties are asked to administer many of our benefit programs. As a county employee myself, I'm one of the few legislators that have actually worked in these systems. I'm very, very aware of the challenges county workers face in delivering Medicaid, cash assistance, SNAP, and other federally mandated programs. Section 1 of this bill creates the Human Services Steering Committee to oversee Minnesota's IT systems. It brings together state agencies, county representatives, and IT experts to guide system development, set priorities, and track funding. The 14-member with 2 ex officio committee meets at least quarterly, takes public input, and ensures transparency by recording all votes. Importantly, the state must consult the committee before making major system changes and must implement changes that receive at least 7 members' votes. Finally, the committee reports annually to the legislature on system funding, recommendations, and improvement needs. In short, it puts a formal structure in place to improve coordination, accountability, and decision-making for human services technology across the state. Section 2 of this bill provides one-time funding for fiscal year 2027 to modernize county human service IT systems in partnership with counties. It focuses in 2 areas. First, it's system improvements by expanding access to tools like Data Depot, automation and AI, improving user interfaces to replace outdated systems, enhancing eligibility platforms, and strengthening data integration and tracking. Second are the policy-driven updates, making system changes to align with legislative requirements. This includes automating eligibility checks, reducing duplicate data entry, simplifying SNAP reporting, improving accuracy in benefits processing, modernizing client notices, and adding automation like case noting. Overall, the goal is to make these systems more efficient, user-friendly, reduce error rates, and align with current policy while reducing the administrative burden on county workers. The bill contains an appropriation to support this work. I've left it open because it's going to be up to Chair Schumacher and Chair Knorr and others to decide the fate of this. And I want to thank Chair Schumacher for hearing the bill today. I want to thank Representative Vernig for pushing me on this bill and being a co-author. Lastly, I want to thank members for recognizing the urgency of this issue, recognizing that it affects all 87 counties and treating it in a bipartisan manner.
Thank you, Representative Nadeau. Who would you like as your first presenter?
Mr. Chair, I apologize. This is Matt Hilgart with the Association of Minnesota Counties. We're just trying to make sure that the laptop 1 cable is working properly. I apologize for
And Mr. Hilgert, is this your first time in front of this committee?
You would think so. Apologies. I apologize for this.
Mr. Chair,
Chair Knorr.
you can see that we already have a technology problem.
I thought I gave him plenty of time.
While that's loading, is someone ready to offer some testimony?
Mr. Howell, you want to come up and speak? Thank you.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and present your testimony.
Jeannie Holland. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Co-Chair Knorr, and members. My name is Jeannie Holland. I'm a Wright County Commissioner. When I was first elected to the county board, I heard from others that the HHS department was using green screens. I thought they were joking. And so when I had a constituent issue, I went and it was jaw-dropping to see that they truly were using the green screen. As a county commissioner, I heard directly from constituents about delays in receiving benefits that they depend on. In Wright County, we take our customer service seriously, and our employees work hard to meet the mandates placed on us by both state and federal governments. But Maxis is making that nearly impossible. This is not a workforce problem. Our employees are capable. The system is failing them, and it is failing the residents that they serve. Benefits are delayed. Errors sometimes go undetected until money has already gone out the door. And staff are stretched to their limits trying to work around a system from the 1980s. We deserve a modern eligibility platform that is efficient, reliable, and built with program integrity. The state would never accept these types of inefficiencies for their workers, and it should not be assumed that the counties can. I'm asking for your support of House File 4675 to provide the funding necessary to bring Minnesota to 2026. Our constituents cannot afford to wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Mr. Hilgert, are you ready for us now?
We are. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and give us your testimony.
Thank you, representatives. My name is Crystal Linder. My name is Crystal Linder. I'm a public assistance coordinator with Dakota County and the economic and employment area. I work in the training unit. Maxis is a system that made its debut in 1989. In the 10 years that I've worked within public assistance, it has had little to no adjustments or improvements made to the system, apart from adding an email line to the adder panel, which is the address panel, or one of the more significant and recent changes, as we see on the jobs panel coming up here. They have added a cash pick window. This update has made for extra keystrokes, with the worker not only needing to add income amount to the front-facing panel, but also within sub-panel windows called the pick windows. There has always been a snap pick window, and now there is a cash pick window. Both need to be added for accuracy. This gives us a total of 3 separate spots to put the income at this point. While the cash pick window update was made to help determine eligibility for family cash programs, it did not impact singles cash and still requires a workaround. The issue causes the worker to fiat, or in other words, override the system determination. For SNAP eligibility alone, there's a section in our Poly Temp 020602 that calls out 13 different reasons for fiating and instructions on how to fiat. As you can see, the worker is going through the fiat process for a singles cash, known as general assistance. In this part of the fiating, the worker must list the income from the jobs panel a 4th time because it was not pulled over by the system, even though it was entered 3 other times. If you didn't catch it in that first time, don't worry, because the worker now will have to go through each of the consecutive months of eligibility after the first month of initial application, and they will update this. But there usually is only 1 plus a month, but there could be potential for several other months. After fiating and approving GA eligibility, the worker then needs to go into the SNAP eligibility and fiat the SNAP eligibility determination. Before going over the SNAP eligibility, the worker needs to remember each month of the GA amount and what month it correlates with. So you'll see here at the end when they approve the GA, they need to remember the 2 amounts, because when they go into the SNAP eligibility, they need to put those 2 amounts into the SNAP budget. Luckily though, when you do go over to fiat the SNAP eligibility amount, the income from the jobs panel does pull over, so I guess that's a benefit. It pulls over the listed amount into the budget for SNAP. However, the public assistance grant for general assistance that was just approved does not pull over. The GA amount is considered counted income and needs to be factored into the SNAP budget before approval. We fiat SNAP to include the GA amount to accurately get the correct SNAP allotment, and this is done for each month just like GA was. These are all manual numbers that are being typed in by the worker, so they need to be recorded, often by hand, copy and pasted, which proves errors can happen. And so when the worker goes into fiat, they can put the correct numbers into the screen, as you can see that they were doing there. They are putting the general assistance amount into each of those SNAP fiat budgets. Workers have approximately 350 to 400 cases for adult SNAP and cash in Dakota County. Having to do this type of manual update for their cases adds extra time onto each case they process and extra keystrokes, and it's prone to more errors. This system is primarily a keyboard-based system, meaning no mouse manipulation is happening.
All right, thank you, Ms. Linder.
Good morning, Chair and Representatives. My name is Dana DeMaster, and I am the Director of Employment and Economic Assistance for Dakota County. Maxis is just one of many systems that our financial workers need to use to determine eligibility for the programs. Maxis handles cash and food as well as some healthcare, but another major system is METS, the Minnesota Eligibility Technology System. That's used to determine eligibility for another big chunk of medical assistance. METS came around in 2013, so it is significantly newer than Maxis, and it does have some great improvements over Maxis. First of all, you can use a mouse. So that's like really great, especially when you're training people in their 20s who, have never seen something where you have to use codes to move around in that. But also for participants, they're able to apply online and their information auto-populates in the system, which alleviates the time that it takes for staff to have to enter information. Like in Maxis, when someone applies online, our workers essentially get a PDF that takes about 45 minutes for them to hand enter the information that the participant already entered. METS takes care of that, and so that's really great. It also interfaces with some federal databases around things like asset verification, income, and immigration status. So again, that's really great and reduces a lot of that inaccuracy, missed information, as well as data entry. However, that's about 45% of our cases, and we call those happy path. And so 45% of applications are happy path. The remainder end up going to the worker. And some reasons that something is not happy path is if someone entered their name as Mike instead of Michael, or if they are attached to a different case. So if you've got a parent with a child and they're on one household, the non-custodial parent applies for medical assistance separately, but they're associated with that other household due to them contributing to that child's financial well-being. Those all go to our worker and then have to be manually done. And so there definitely are some benefits. The other benefit would be that it has, participants are able to upload their own documents. And so that's very easy when they apply, they can upload their verification documents. Other systems like Maxis, counties have filled in that gap ourselves, and we fund and build our own participant portals, which then look different and feel different from county to county. So if you move from one county to another, your user experience of getting benefits will be quite different. So despite those good things, our workers much prefer to work in Maxis over METS. It does take about 2 years to train someone to be a financial worker in medical assistance. And for some of those reasons is the long list of workarounds. And many of these are fairly recent. Since the pandemic, there have been a lot of policy changes, both related to the pandemic and other reasons like the recent immigration change in eligibility that have not been updated in METS. And so there's workarounds that are very, very rigid. The policy manual for METS is now over 1,000 pages long if you printed it. We don't even tell our workers to memorize the steps because they change frequently and they have to follow them exact. You make one mistake, you have to completely start over. Another long time workaround that's been around since METS started was if you need to add a baby. So if someone has a baby, you have to completely close out their case and completely reopen it. One of the challenges is that that family who has an infant, and so it's already a stressful, overwhelming time in anybody's lives, now gets an auto-generated letter from the state saying their medical insurance closed. And so from our workers' perspective, you're dealing with the family and telling them, you're calling them and saying, okay, this letter is gonna come, but please disregard it because you do have insurance, right? And so there's that added stress level and then the added work for our workers. Another, the final issue I'll mention is that for long-term care and folks with certain disability eligibility for medical assistance are still in Maxis. And so you've got two different systems that don't talk. that people are having, our staff are having to move between. But also for the people who are using these programs, if they become disabled, we have to close out their METS case and then completely reopen it separately in Maxis, again, generating that auto closure notice at a time that I imagine has to be very stressful if you're looking at moving into long-term care or needing some long-term care type assistance. And so those are the quick overview of what makes METS an improvement over Maxis, but also some significant challenges that we're facing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and present your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Co-Chair Knorr, and members. My name is Greg Kreiser. I'm the Wright County Administrator. The continued use of Maxis is a cost driver and a barrier to serving our residents. When operating in Maxis, our staff have to navigate 17 pages of documented workarounds, which we call fiats, where employees must manually override errors just to complete routine transactions. No long-term care application can be submitted without triggering an override error to complete the application. And even after overriding all those errors, staff still have to, at the end, manually add up all the assets by hand. Literally, our staff, after going through all the workarounds, all the pages, have to get out a calculator and add up the assets at the end. The learning curve for this system is not measured in weeks, but rather months in a calendar year. A new employee needs 2 months before they are minimally functionally able to work in the program. At 6 months, I have supervisors describing staff who are essentially in a fetal position, convinced they will never master the system. At 12 months, if we have managed to retain that employee, they are finally functionally productive. That's a full year investment before we see an employee at a functional usage of Maxis. What kind of business could ever operate on these underlying workforce conditions? Turnover in this area of work is high, and in turn, that turnover cost lands directly on our levy. Wright County taxpayers are subsidizing the inefficiency of an outdated state system every single time we post a job opening in our HHS department. Our current caseload runs from 250 to 330 cases per worker. With a modern system, a reasonable estimate puts that at double or triple. One of my HHS supervisors told me when she started in this field in 2002, there was already conversations about replacing Maxis. That was 24 years ago. I would ask that 2026 finally be the year we replace Maxis. I ask for your support on House File 4675. Our staff have earned it, our taxpayers have earned it, and frankly, so have the residents of Wright County and Minnesota, who are waiting on the other end of every one of those fiats and workarounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kreiser. Next, we have Matt Hilgert and Britta Torkelson.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Matt Hilgard, and this morning I will be speaking on behalf of the Association of Minnesota Counties, the Minnesota Rural Counties, with their leader, Britta Torkelson, and the Minnesota Intercounty Association with their executive director, Nathan Jessen. Mr. Chair, I want to thank the author for bringing this really important bill forward. I want to thank another co-author, Representative Vernig, for also being on this bill, and of course, the chairs of this committee for your interest, and all the members on this committee, because I would be surprised at this point if there's anyone on this committee who hasn't seen one of these presentations or heard from their county commissioners about these technology programs. And if you've missed that chance, please let me know, and we will set one of those demonstrations up. It is truly jaw-dropping to sit in a chair and actually take an electronic SNAP application that's been processed at a state level, where someone's gone to a portal, an online website, typed it all in. They think, oh, this is great, it's going into my database. And we are literally printing those out when we receive those at a county, putting them in front of our screens, and typing in the application data that has already been entered. So when we're thinking about this issue, I like to think about it in terms of 4 lenses. The first one is, frankly, the staff and the workforce who are doing this work, which, thank God, we have folks who are interested in this. Think about the exhaustion. Think about the recruiting. Dana mentioned that it's tough to actually find people coming out of college or wanting to start their careers, and the first thing they see is they're going to be using a DOS-based or COBOL-based system. You know, counties already struggle trying to recruit their workforce. This is one of those hurdles that makes it even tougher. 2 years to become fluent. That's like learning a new language. In some cases, tougher. 1,000-page manual, Mr. Chair, I know you've seen me in other committees bring 2 reams of paper just for the manual that people have to learn and become fluent with. And that's not considering the fiats, those workarounds that they have to do on every single application. One of those fiats can be 17 pages of a different manual they have to learn. And that's one system, not even one of the 12 systems we showcase, or I think we chose 6 for this committee, up on the screen before. And I like to also think about what this means for rural and what this means for metro counties. As you heard, I'm testifying on behalf of all the county organizations we have, rural, metro, suburban, regional centers. We are all united as a top priority this session for this. In rural Minnesota, I'm thinking about Representative Backer's district with Stacy Hennon, who's been in front of this committee before. They cannot lose anyone. They might only have 8 people doing the work in a joint powers for 6 or 7 counties. When they lose someone who knows how to do these applications, who might be fluent in 2 or 3 of these operating systems, it is a complete detriment. I think about the metro counties. I was thinking about Representative Fisher's district the other day. Just last year, Star Tribune reported that Ramsey County had to hire Ramsey County chose to hire close to 80 new eligibility services folks just to process the paperwork they have. So think about that for a tax-based stretch district, just like Representative Fisher's, about saying, hey, we want to do restorative justice initiatives. Hey, we want to invest in parks and transit, et cetera. But hey, at the same time, we're having wait times that are unacceptable. So because of these inefficiencies, we're having to use our levy dollars to hire 80 just eligibility determination workers. That brings us to the second lens, which is the property tax pressure. Mr. Kreitzer testified a little bit about just how inefficient these systems are. On average, a county can expect one caseworker, to handle about 300 active SNAP, Medicaid, cash assistance programs at any given time. And talking with some of our colleagues in the Midwest and across the nation, they're at double or triple that. Wisconsin is talking about replacing their system right now, and they replaced theirs about 2 decades ago, and they're at 1 per around 800 to 900. So we are 300% less efficient. And what that means is your property tax dollars are paying for that inefficiency. Fraud prevention, identification, and program identification. It goes without saying that you saw a DOS-based green-based screen. These programs don't talk to each other. They don't have 21st century capabilities. And then, of course, I like to end with the client outcomes. And I hope we'll hear some testimony today about that aspect too. At the end of the day, people who are applying for benefits and are qualified to receive benefits wait in a queue where they have no clue where they are in that queue. They're already in a stressful situation, and it's made worse by these systems. And so from a client perspective, we are providing outcomes that are not acceptable as well. And I'll close with one thing, and it's actually from Representative Frederick's district. Just this week, we were celebrating one of our great public servants. His name is Bob Meyer. He's the county administrator for Blue Earth. For over 35 years of public service. He started his career as a Health and Human Services Director. He ended as a county manager. And as he was giving his retirement speech to a large group of folks who came to celebrate him, he said, folks, I want to just say when I started my career, my first week on the job, I was informed that Blue Earth County was going to be a pilot county for Maxis. And nothing has changed since then. 36 years of a full career, and that green screen that you saw is still the same system that folks are using. So we appreciate you all. We know this is tough. We know we're all being creative. Representative Frederick has bills up in committee later today in capital investment. We are trying to find a way to resource these major investments, but we really do appreciate the bipartisan support and urgency on this issue this year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hilgard. Representative Nadeau, does that conclude the presentation portion before we go to other testifiers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Next, we have Sydney Spreck from MAPE. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and present your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Sydney Spreck, and I'm a political affairs coordinator at the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, or MAPE. MAPE is a union of over 18,000 state workers across all of Minnesota's agencies, boards, and commissions. I want to thank Representative Nadeau for introducing this bill, which reflects the very real technology needs being dealt with in human services programs, both at the county and state agency levels. So our state agency workers have to go into these programs as well to access data. Our state and counties need a more unified IT system that can cover multiple programs and communicate effectively as participants move between programs or are enrolled in multiple at once. The proposed steering committee would be an excellent body to plan for the consolidation of all of these systems and create an implementation plan that moves the state in that direction. We have one minor concern, which is the pulling of funding from agency operations to support the work of the steering committee. The Department of Human Services testified in the past that they are operating at around 2 to 3% of the agency's overall funding. This is extremely low for the size and number of programs and funds they oversee. The state should not continue to chip away at their operating funds for these different programs so that they can maintain their program integrity overall. We urge you to support this bill and add language instructing the steering committee to plan for an integrated human services system overall, as well as include a dedicated appropriation for the steering committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spreck, for your testimony. Next, we have Kyle Burnt and Aaron Hubert. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and present your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kyle Burnt. I'm here today on behalf of the Long-Term Care Imperative. Appreciate the opportunity to testify on behalf of House File 4675. We have been before this committee to highlight the growing delays in enrolling older Minnesotans into Medicaid for long-term care services. There's a handout in your packet that highlights this by county. These delays mean that residents who have a spend down are making choices about the care that they receive or delay because of their min choices isn't up to date and approved. Each of our associations have members who are carrying over $500,000 in unpaid Medicaid outstanding payments due to these delays. We recognize the underlying challenges to timely enrollment. So while we have a sense of urgency, we recognize change requires support and implementation of system changes that are necessary. I will turn it over to my colleague to complete our testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Erin Hubert, and I'm also here on behalf of the Long-Term Care Imperative. With respect to Section 2 of the bill, we would urge the committee to consider inclusion of portal access to authorized enrolled providers so that they have better awareness of their clients' and residents' application status and critically are able to support them in their application process. While we appreciate that this bill is primarily focused on tech integration, systems modernization also includes process improvement. So whether through the steering committee in this bill or through another avenue, we would ask the legislature to consider 3 additional things. One, whether there is feasibility of presumptive eligibility for nursing facility and elderly waiver customized living. Whether we can streamline service agreements and care planning, including allowing providers to complete parts of the long-term care assessment and permitting facilities to work directly with lead agencies on behalf of residents. And then finally, whether there is value in creating a statewide applications review team to help lead agencies that have application backlogs, which I believe is a concept included in the governor's supplemental budget proposal. In light of a growing population of older adults, operating caps, and rising expenses, timely Medicaid enrollment is becoming a top priority for long-term care providers to address. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on House File 4675? Seeing none, public testimony is closed. Member discussion on House File 4675. Representative Vernig.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Rep. Nadeau. I'm like super excited. This is the bill, one of the bills I've been waiting for. As you know, I have a similar bill that also outlines the listed projects. They're very similar. I too was a Hennepin County employee, so my first encounter with this was when I was doing reasonable accommodation requests and ergonomic assessments for eligibility staff, and they'd have 2 giant monitors and their laptop up, and they had these young people, you didn't know what these were. They were these programmable keyboards that were like this big, and because you couldn't use the mouse, and you had to memorize all the different shortcuts, and they didn't comply. They weren't compatible with like Dragon software. So if you needed voice activated software, they didn't really work well. And I thought there's got to be a better way to do this. And then I got elected, and it's been something that's sort of been on my radar from the very beginning. Last fall, when I met with Dakota County, it was very clear that caseworkers simply wanted to help families and that these systems just weren't delivering. So I'm really glad that you're doing this. Often we tell folks, like, you need to speed up and get moving, but these systems are so outdated. So I appreciate that there's a look at both the steering committee, some funding. I think we need to look long-term. You know, what is this? It's not sexy, right? You don't do groundbreakings for IT systems like you do roads and bridges, but they are critical infrastructure. And Hennepin County, for example, does have IT teams that have built, you know, bridge applications and things like that, but not every county has that, and we've heard that from across the state. So hopefully, you know, we can do something this year. It is bipartisan. I know Representative Gilman has talked about this a lot. We need systems that can match our commitment to serving people in their time of need while ensuring, you know, modern accountability, verification. It's achievable. We just have to prioritize it and have a plan. So I just want to say thank you. And thank you for hearing the bill. So, you know, hopefully we can make some progress this year.
Thank you, Representative Vernig. Representative Gander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rep. Nadeau, thank you for bringing this bill. It seems like we have multiple bills maybe going down parallel tracks to try to get this same thing done. Are we confident that we're going to be able to converge all of those into a single action that ultimately goes through Ways and Means and gets final approval? Or are we still a little bit fractured as we push this along? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Representative Nadeau, if you could tell us how this session's going to end.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Gander. You know, if people will just listen to me, I think this would go a lot better. No, there's, you know, there are multiple tracks. There's a lot of ways that we can get things done, and I just hope that one of them works.
Representative Gander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And along that line, of course, the one that might eventually work could be kind of a summation of the several that are happening right now. And I hope we do have a process to bring all that into a final best result at the end of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Gander. To that point, Chair Knorr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's about time. We have talked about system changes for a long time. As someone who has used the system at the county level in Hennepin County and managing it at the state level for 15 years, I've used that green screen, just to let you know. And so this is overdue, and this is the time that I think this is the year that we will find a comprehensive solution to make sure that not only Maxis, but MEC Square, the Met system, the PERSIM, SSIS, you name it, there are many systems that need to be updated. We've talked about two today. The Met system was supposed to fix everything. When we had that Curum system a few years back, it never worked. But we're in 2026, and with the innovation that we have, with the AI and everything else, I assure you that we're not going to end the session until we get something to solve the challenges that we're faced with. So, Mr. Chair, thank you so much. There are many avenues, and I look forward to continuing this conversation before the end of session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair Knorr. Representative Jacob.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. Thank you, Representative Nadeau, for bringing this forward. I've certainly heard from my old county commissioners the need for this, and I think we've heard about it statewide. But one question I would have would be, fast forward 5 years, the steering committee, what happens with that steering committee? Oftentimes, we'll set something up, resolve the problems, and then we're, you know, it speaks in the bill about how the committee costs are and budgets are handled. What happens to this committee after 5 years and the funding that would finance it?
Representative Nadeau.
And thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Jacobs. You know, if we get to the point where we no longer have technology changes, you know, maybe we disband it. I was involved in basically doing the PID system for Hennepin County. We started that project 9 years. It took 9 years to change our assessing and our property tax reporting systems in Hennepin County. So I hope that we get to the point where we no longer need these things, but I think that's one of the pieces of, I think that's part of the magic of this particular bill, is that it's bringing those diverse partners together that are focusing on what are the problems that counties have in implementation, what are those issues that the federal government is putting on the states and the counties back, and how do we work together to make sure that we're trying to solve those in the most efficient possible way.
Mr. Hilgert.
Mr. Schoenmaker, if I could just add on, because I think this is a critical component of this whole package. And Representative Nadeau illustrated that great, but it is, I like to say that instead of a lowercase consultation, we're actually creating an uppercase collaboration in this steering committee. So for the first time ever, counties who operate these systems would actually be in the decision-making tree of what's the strategy, what is the prioritization. We need nimbleness, we need expediency, those are critical things, but it all takes collaboration. We see our state partners as vital to this, and so this committee structure that we're creating via the steering committee is a first ever of its kind to give counties truly a little bit more power at that seat of decision making and just a little bit more control over their own destiny as we're still mandated to use these systems. So thanks for asking that question. We see it as a critical component of this bill.
Representative Jacob.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher. So just so I understand, you see the steering committee as a permanent committee into perpetuity. It doesn't serve a purpose, get the problems resolved, and then end. You see it as a permanent committee?
Mr. Hilgert.
Mr. Schoenmaker, sorry, Chair Schoenmaker, Representative Jacob, I do defer to Representative Nadeau on his author's intent of this. When we came to him to talk about this bill to us represents really like, let's focus on the most immediate, urgent projects that we can and should do now to help us with a variety of efficiencies and client benefits. And so if you look to Section 2, that list, we don't know how long that could take. That could take year, 2, 3, more. So it's unclear about how long this committee stays forward. But I will tell you transparently, if we're successful in this, I do see this as a vehicle for the conversations that Representative Knorr is talking about of are we using this structure to actually make the comprehensive investments in some of the systems transformation. So I think it's unclear about that.
And Representative Jacobs and Chair Schumacher, I mean, I do see this as an ongoing, you know, if you read the bill, it talks about having quarterly meetings. One of the examples that I'll bring out that we initiated a number of years ago was called CJCC, and it was a collaboration of public safety officials, it was suburban prosecutors, it was district court judges, it was corrections officers, it was human services, it was public defenders, and it brings all of those partners together that looks at how do we make our system more efficient? Where are we losing people? Where are we spending money that we shouldn't have to? And I look at this as we need more collaboration. I mean, lots more between agencies and counties. I mean, at some point in time, I mean, look at what, I'll bring up HR 1. There are challenges that the state has in dealing with eligibility and work requirement and volunteer hours. There is technology that we need to build in order to be compliant, to reduce error rates. And in my mind, the only way that can happen is with increased collaboration between the people who are mandated and responsible to provide and do that data and the state who is basically providing those systems that we're forced to work in.
Representative Jacob.
That's all. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Representative Knorr. Chair Knorr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you've already noted, this, it's a state supervised county and tribal government administered. Have we consulted with the tribal government in this whole process?
Mr. Hilgert.
Chair Schomaker, Chair Knorr, we've talked about this at our county tribal meeting, but we are open to any appropriate inclusion of whatever the tribes prefer to be a part of this table. As you know, there are initiative tribes that actually operate these systems as well. So we certainly want them at that table and to choose what representation they want on this steering committee.
Chair Knorr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on the other second question, Representative Doe, you talked about the HR 1. Do we know if we're getting any federal funding to support the adjustment to the changes that we're supposed to be implementing from the federal government?
Representative Nadeau.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Schumacher and Chair Knorr. There is $200 million in HR 1 that's available for states to apply to, and I want to say that Minnesota has gotten a couple of grants already, smaller, I want to say between 3 and 5 million. So there are funds that we're eligible to apply for. And that's as far as I can tell you right now. There's so little guidance coming from the feds on some of these implementation things, but that's as much as I know.
Chair Knorr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on also the prescription of what needs to be changed, I see that blue screen scripting needs to be, so we can create a more case notes and everything done. Do we need to put in legislation? Because if that blue zone is updated, you lose everything and you start over again. What is the plan going forward? Because this is not the end-all be-all solution, because we're describing technological changes in the statute.
Representative Nadeau.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Knorr and Chair Schumacher. I think that's what this bill is about. It's about bringing those requisite partners together to identify those things. Where's the low-hanging fruit? What can we do quickly? And I don't look at this as, I look at this as hopefully to solve those acute problems that we have today with interaction, but, it's also looking long-term and getting ahead of whatever we can and trying to foresee some of those things, or recognizing that something that works in Hennepin may work someplace else. Something that works in Cook County may work in Hennepin. And to me, that's what this is about.
Chair Knorr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look forward to seeing the APD and also making sure that we do have this 90, 75, or 50% federal share for any of the system updates that we are working on. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
Final word, Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Chair Schumacher and Chair Knorr, for hearing this bill. Members, I appreciate you entering into the discussion. One of the things that we oftentimes don't see is, we get to hear from each other. We get to hear from department directors. But you know what? We very, very seldom get to hear from the actual case managers and financial workers that really do this unseen, behind-the-scenes, difficult work. And we talk about attracting employees, and we talk about retaining them, and yep, there's all kinds of things that we do at the county level to do that. But those are the people that we rely on. Every one of our systems relies on those employees that are working in these systems every day. And I hope that we will move this forward and that we'll start actually collaborating and coordinating some of these systems. And I'm super optimistic, and thank you, members.
With that, House File 4675 is laid over. Thank you, Representative Nadeau.